Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. My name is Bianca Williams. I am 36 years old. And for a long time, I believed trust worked the way foundations do in the buildings I design. You run the calculations, pour the concrete, let it cure, and if you did everything right, it holds up the sky. I thought I had poured the strongest foundation in the world with my fiancé, Adrian. Our friends in Chicago half admired and half teased us because we seemed to glide through life together. We did not argue in public. We did not snoop through each other's phones. We did not play games. We were the calm couple. I live and breathe structure. I am an architect who spends long days on construction sites, drafting plans for sustainable housing in the city and walking between unfinished towers. The predictability comforts me. Adrian was the color splashed across my carefully drawn blueprints. He was 34, worked in marketing, charming enough to talk himself into or out of any situation. We had been together for 3 years and living together for 2, in my loft in Bronzeville with my cat, Prince. Prince is a huge orange tabby with the personality of a strict landlord. He hisses at delivery drivers, narrows his eyes at my sister, and treats me like the hired help. But Prince adored Adrian. That should have been my first warning. In movies, the villain always has that strange bond with animals. At the time, I took it as a blessing. If the cat who distrusts everyone like my man, then my man must be special. Adrian proposed 6 months before everything exploded. It was perfect, understated, exactly my style. We were on our small balcony on a Tuesday night, eating takeout Thai food in sweatpants, and he slid a ring box across the table with a shy smile. No cameras, no public spectacle, just us and the city lights. I said yes before he could finish his speech. We started planning a summer wedding in Wisconsin near Lake Geneva. I built spreadsheets for everything: guests, catering, music, transportation. Because my career was further along, I paid for most of it. Adrian handled details like the music and the bar, or so he said. 2 weeks before it all fell apart, we sat on the living room floor addressing invitations. The heater clanked, Prince slept on Adrian's feet, and my heart felt anchored and safe. I watched Adrian bend over the envelopes, dark curls falling over his forehead, and thought, this is it. This is home. We told ourselves we were a drama-free couple. No strict phone rules, no exchanging passwords. We took pride in not being jealous. I prided myself on being secure, rational, unthreatened. Early in our relationship, Adrian told me he wanted to stay friends with his ex-girlfriend, Alicia. They had dated for a year and ended on good terms, he said. They moved in the same circles, and he did not want things to be awkward. I did not throw a fit or issue an ultimatum. I had always seen controlling behavior as a sign of insecurity, and I refused to be labeled that way. I told myself adults had pasts, and secure women did not demand a man cut off every ex, even when something about her tone bothered me. I met Alicia twice before the truth came out, and both times felt like walking barefoot over glass. The first time was at a backyard barbecue a year into my relationship with Adrian. She was petite, light-skinned, hair in soft curls, bright smile, the opposite of my more reserved calm. When Adrian introduced us, she glanced at him, then at me, then back at him with a small, knowing smile that rubbed me the wrong way immediately. "So this is Bianca," she said, drawing out my name. "I have heard so much about you." Then she turned back to Adrian and laughed, touching his arm. "She is much more serious than I expected. Remember New Orleans? You were so wild in New Orleans." All afternoon she dropped memories I could not enter, little stories and private jokes. Each line was a reminder that she knew a version of Adrian I had never seen. I smiled, squeezed his hand, and told myself I could afford to be gracious because I was the present, not the past. The second time we ran into her was worse. Adrian had just lost his previous job and had been unemployed for 5 months. I was paying our rent, our groceries, his student loans, all the small things that keep a life running. I never complained. I called it an investment in our future. One day we bumped into Alicia at a coffee shop. She looked Adrian up and down, then looked at my business suit. "Still no job?" she asked him, voice sweet and cutting at the same time. Then she turned to me. "You are a saint, Bianca. I could never support a man like that. That is honestly why we did not work out. I need a provider. Adrian is more of a free spirit." Adrian looked humiliated. I defended him without thinking. "He is talented," I said firmly. "He is taking time to find the right fit. We are fine." She just shrugged and told me, "If you say so. Good luck." It stung, but I would not let her see that. Fast forward to the week, everything changed. I had a 3-day work trip to Denver for a conference on green energy and architecture. I packed my suitcase with automatic efficiency, kissed Adrian goodbye at the door, and left him with instructions to feed Prince on time. He gave me that crooked grin that always melted me and told me not to miss him too much. I walked out feeling loved and solid, not knowing that within 48 hours, one text message would blow up my life. The first day in Denver was busy. Turbulent flight, hotel check-in, panels, small talk. That night, I finally sank into the stiff hotel chair, poured a glass of wine from the minibar, and looked out at the city lights. The room was quiet in that way that pushes thoughts to the surface. Adrian had mentioned Alicia's dog before I left, and it floated back into my mind along with those 2 awkward meetings. A knot tightened low in my stomach. Tried to shake it off. Jealousy was not my style, I told myself. I texted Adrian goodnight and expected a quick love you back. Nothing came. Time passed. I told myself he was playing video games, or hanging with friends, or asleep. I scolded myself for even noticing. I did not want to be the partner who called and asked, "Where are you?" every evening. I had spent years training myself not to be that woman. Around 11:30 Denver time, my phone buzzed on the glass table. Relief washed through me. Finally, I thought. I picked it up and saw his name, Adrian Love. I opened the message, expecting something sweet. Instead, I read, "I am sleeping at my ex-girlfriend's house tonight. You need to prove you are not the insecure type by being okay with this." I read it 3 times. Nothing in my body moved except my eyes. The architect inside me tried to parse the sentence as if it were a misaligned beam. Sleeping at my ex-girlfriend's house. Not visiting. Sleeping. You need to prove you are not the insecure type. He took the trait I was proud of and turned it into a weapon. If I objected, I was insecure. If I stayed silent, I was a doormat. It was a trap built on my own values. Underneath the hurt, logic started lining up facts. Fact 1. Adrian said he was at Alicia's house overnight, while I was out of town. Fact 2. He framed my reaction in advance as a flaw. Fact 3. He expected me to comply so he could tell himself he had my permission. Then another detail rose up from the back of my mind like a submerged object in murky water. Alicia was married. Months earlier, after that painful coffee shop encounter, I had looked her up online. Everyone does it, whether we admit it or not. I had seen wedding photos from 2 years back. Her husband's name was Evan Brooks, a tall, serious-looking real estate broker in Indianapolis. If Adrian was simply crashing at a married couple's place, he could have said, "I am staying at Alicia and Evan's." The absence of Evan's name sounded loud. Did Evan know someone planned to sleep under his roof that night? The thought snapped something in me. This was not just disrespect toward me. It might be a violation of another man's marriage. Adrian believed he had me in check emotionally. I decided to step off the board entirely and play a different game. I did not answer the text. Instead, I opened my laptop and started searching. Within minutes, I found Alicia's professional profile, then Evan's, and then his real estate firm's website. His business photograph stared back at me, confident and unsuspecting. In the contact section, I found his direct cell number. I checked the time. It was almost 1 in the morning in Chicago. Calling a stranger in the middle of the night went against every polite instinct I had. But what Adrian was doing shattered every agreement we had ever made. I hesitated for a heartbeat, then reminded myself that my discomfort did not outweigh my right to clarity. I dialed. The phone rang several times before a deep, groggy voice answered. "Hello, is this Evan Brooks?" I asked as calmly as I could. Sheets rustled. "Yes. Who is this? Is something wrong?" I swallowed. "My name is Bianca. I am Adrian's fiancée." Silence flattened the line. Then he asked slowly, "Adrian, as in my wife Alicia's ex-boyfriend?" "Yes," I said. "I am sorry to call so late, but I just received a text from him. He told me he is sleeping at Alicia's house tonight, and that I needed to be comfortable with it to prove I am not insecure. I assumed you were there as well." Another long pause. When Evan spoke again, sleep was gone from his voice. "I am not at home," he said. "I have been in Ohio visiting my sister since yesterday morning. Alicia told me she would have a quiet night in with a book." My stomach dropped. "So she is supposed to be alone in the house?" "As far as I knew," Evan replied. "And Adrian told me he was watching the game at a sports bar with the guys tonight." The pieces slid into place. Evan took a breath. "Do not hang up," he said. "I am going to add Alicia to this call." My heart hammered, but I said, "All right." A moment later, the phone clicked and another line connected. "Hello." Alicia's voice sounded alert, not at all like someone pulled from sleep. "Hey, baby," Evan said in a voice so steady it made my skin prickle. "Everything okay at the house?" "It is 1 a.m, Alicia snapped. "I was just about to go to bed." "Why are you calling? Are you alone?" Evan asked. "Of course I am alone," she replied. "Who else would be here?" "That is interesting," Evan said, "because I have someone on the line who says otherwise." "Bianca, are you still there?" I leaned closer to the phone. "I am here," I said, keeping my tone professional and cold. "Hi, Alicia." "And hello, Adrian. I know you are listening." The silence that followed was so total that I swear I could hear my own pulse in my ears. "Bianca," Alicia said at last, fumbling for indignation. "I do not know what he told you, but Adrian is not here. You sound very paranoid." She tried to twist my concern into something embarrassing. Before I could respond, Evan cut in, his patience clearly gone. "Enough. Do not insult my intelligence or Bianca's. You said you were alone." Adrian told Bianca he was spending the night there. I am about to call him and merge him into this conversation. If he is truly at a bar, he will say so. "Stay on this line, Alicia." She protested weakly, but Evan had already started dialing. A few rings later, Adrian answered, his voice loud and cheerful. "Evan, what is up, man?" There was no background noise. No crowd, no game, no clinking glasses. Just silence. "How is the game?" Evan asked lightly. "Who is winning?" "It is a blowout," Adrian replied without missing a beat. "We are in a back room at the sports bar. My friend Tommy reserved it. The wings are incredible." "That is funny," Evan said calmly, "because it is so quiet that it sounds like you are standing in a living room. Maybe my living room. I hear an echo I know very well." The next pause was different. Adrian's voice lost its smoothness. "What are you talking about?" he asked. Evan's tone hardened. "I have Alicia on the line. I have Bianca on the line. Bianca just read me the text you sent her about sleeping at your ex-girlfriend's house. Would you like to explain where you are?" Adrian tried every angle at once. First he insisted it was a joke, then said he was on Alicia's couch but nothing was happening, then tried to blame me. "Bianca has been so controlling about the wedding planning," he said quickly. "I wanted to show her she could lose me if she kept acting that way." Hearing that was like taking a punch to the chest. "You wanted to scare me into being grateful?" I asked. "Congratulations. You just convinced me that losing you is the best thing that could happen to me." Evan's patience finally snapped. He told Adrian he had crossed a hard line by entering his house while he was out of town, and told Alicia he was done. "Pack your things," he said. "When I get back to Indianapolis, I am changing the locks and calling a lawyer." Alicia sobbed and blamed me. Adrian begged and tried to charm. Evan hung up on both of them. For a moment I stayed on the line with Evan. We were two strangers holding the jagged edges of the same story. He apologized for what I had just heard, even though none of it was his fault. I thanked him for believing me and ended the call. Then I sat in the dark Denver hotel room with my hands shaking so hard I had to put the wine glass down. The life I thought I had was gone. I did not sleep that night. Instead, I opened my wedding spreadsheets and started dismantling the future I had so carefully built. Venue canceled. Catering canceled. Florist canceled. Every email I sent cost me another non-refundable deposit, but it hurt less than the thought of standing up in front of my family and promising my life to a liar. By dawn, I had erased an entire ceremony from the calendar. The next morning, I emailed my boss and said I had a family emergency. Then I booked the earliest flight back to Chicago. The plane ride passed in a gray blur. On the drive from the airport, I could not bring myself to go to the loft. I went straight to my older sister Kim's house in the suburbs instead. She opened the door, took one look at my face, and pulled me into a hug so tight my ribs ached. I finally cried there, standing in her hallway while her children watched cartoons in the next room. Once the storm of that first breakdown passed, I did practical things. I blocked Adrian on my phone and on every social media platform I could remember. The next day, a voicemail came from an unfamiliar number. It was Evan. He had rushed back from Ohio. Alicia and Adrian were gone. While cleaning the guest bathroom, he had found Adrian's toiletry bag. Inside, in a side pocket, was a house key with a pink cover. On the cover, someone had written BW in permanent marker. "It is a key to my front door," Evan said. "I tested it. It works." I think Alicia labeled it BW because of your initials, Bianca Williams. If you ever found it in Adrian's things, you would assume it went to your apartment. Instead, it gave him quiet access to my home when I was out of town. That means this was not a one-time bad decision. This was an arrangement. The idea of Adrian walking into that man's house, using a key marked with my initials to betray both of us, made me feel physically sick. It was not just infidelity, it was architecture. He had designed a two-home system for himself and hidden one of the doors behind my name. That was the moment any lingering softness in me died. When I finally went back to the loft, I went with a plan. I texted Adrian once, very clearly. I am coming to get my personal documents and jewelry. If you are there, do not speak to me. If you try to stop me, I will call the police. He did not respond. I borrowed Kim's car, drove into the city, and climbed the familiar stairs with my heart pounding. Adrian was sitting on the couch when I opened the door. Prince was curled in his lap. Both of them looked up. Adrian jumped to his feet as if I had thrown cold water on him. "Bianca, please just listen," he said. "You are throwing away 3 years over a joke that went wrong." I walked past him without answering and went straight to the bedroom to get my suitcase and important items. When I mentioned the key Evan had found, the color drained from Adrian's face. He insisted he did not know what I was talking about, then admitted he had it for emergencies, then said Alicia had pushed it on him. Finally, when none of that moved me, he shifted into cruelty. He called me intense, exhausting, frigid, accused me of treating our relationship like a project. He said that was why he needed someone like Alicia, who in his words was relaxed. I looked at him and saw exactly what he was. A man who preferred partners he could live off of and manipulate. "I am not insecure, Adrian," I said quietly. "I am done. You are not on the lease. You have never paid a bill in your own name for this place. Legally, you are a guest. Your invitation is revoked. You have 24 hours to leave. After that, I am changing the locks, and anything you leave will go on the curb." He laughed and said I would never risk a scene. I told him I had just walked away from more than $10,000 in wedding deposits. His game console meant nothing to me. I picked up Prince, who allowed himself to be scooped up without protest, grabbed my suitcase, and walked out. I did not look back. I drove to Kim's and spent the next weeks treating the separation like a demolition zone. I met with the property manager, a stern woman named Denise, and paid the penalty to break my lease. It cost me almost $4,000. It was the price of peace, and I paid it without bargaining. Adrian started telling his version of the story as soon as he realized I would not come back. Mutual friends reached out with concerned messages. Apparently, he claimed he had liked an old picture of Alicia online, and I had overreacted, or that I had a breakdown over the stress of wedding planning and threw him out. I wanted to post the screenshots of his text and humiliate him, but I held my tongue. Sooner or later, a structure built on lies collapses under its own weight. Slowly, the truth emerged anyway. My friend Erica met me for wine one evening and confessed she had seen Adrian and Alicia leaving a dim bar downtown in the middle of a weekday months earlier. Alicia's hand rested on his chest. It had looked intimate. When Adrian noticed Erica, he spent the next week telling her he was helping Alicia through a family crisis and asked her not to worry me with it. He had been using my friend's empathy as a shield. 3 months after the breakup, I moved into a smaller place in Lincoln Park. The windows were huge and Prince loved the sunlight. I threw myself into work and designed a community library addition. For a while, I thought the story had finally ended. Then one late evening my email chimed. It was from Evan. The subject line said only, timeline. He had gained access to an old tablet Alicia left behind. Her messages were still synced. He forwarded me a document full of screenshots. I made it halfway through before I had to put the laptop down and breathe. 5 months back, Adrian complaining to Alicia that I talked about hydrangeas for the reception and that he needed to see her. Weekends when he was supposedly meeting friends for pickup basketball had actually been their stolen time. Months back, I love you. I am only going through with this wedding so I can get my residency paperwork sorted and get her off my back about the job. Once I am settled, we will figure out the next move. The text from the night he set the trap in Denver was there too. She is at that boring work dinner, he wrote. I am all yours tonight. Alicia answered, good. I hate when she calls you. She seems so desperate. I read those words 3 times. The woman living off 2 men's emotional labor and 1 woman's savings had called me desperate. I walked to the bathroom, splashed cold water on my face, and stared at myself in the mirror. I expected to see someone broken. Instead, I saw a woman who had stepped off a collapsing structure in time. I dried my face, went back to my desk, and replied to Evan with one simple line. We both dodged a bullet. We did not talk again for a few weeks. Then he sent another message asking if I preferred coffee or something stronger. We agreed on a coffee shop downtown. When he walked in, he looked different from the polished headshot on his firm's website. Less formal, more human. We talked about everything that had happened. Evan told me about weekends that, in hindsight, were likely trips with someone else. I told him about job interviews Adrian pretended to have that always seemed to fall apart. We compared dates and realized how neatly our lives had been arranged to give Adrian and Alicia privacy. At one point, Evan admitted that as a real estate broker, he prided himself on reading people and still missed what was happening in his own house. I told him that trusting your partner is not a flaw. It is supposed to be the core of the structure. There was a gentle warmth between us by the time we finished our coffee, but we were careful. We did not want to leap from one disaster into something new just because it felt comforting. We exchanged numbers and agreed to check in now and then. In the months that followed, we rebuilt our separate lives. He finalized his divorce. I settled into my new place and my work. Then one evening another email arrived, this time from Evan's sister, Nicole, who worked in forensic accounting. She had been reviewing transactions from his marriage and noticed attempts to open cryptocurrency exchange accounts using my social security number and former address, tied to an email address that looked like Adrian's. She had also found messages between Adrian and Alicia about shifting small amounts from my wedding savings into hidden accounts, their so-called Freedom Fund. The room tilted as I read. The cheating had been terrible enough. Discovering that Adrian had tried to build a secret financial escape route using my information was something else entirely. He had been planning not just to betray me emotionally, but to rob me. If I had married him, there is no telling how deep the damage would have gone. That night I froze my credit, notified my bank, and changed every password I had to long strings no one could guess. The steady, logical part of me that had analyzed load-bearing walls now redirected itself to protecting my future. In an odd way, the horror of that discovery also brought relief. My instincts in Denver had not been irrational or insecure. They had been the only thing standing between me and disaster. Time passed. Seasons changed over Chicago. Prince grew even fatter and claimed every sunbeam in the new apartment as his own. I kept working and reminding myself that what Adrian and Alicia had done said everything about them and nothing about my worth. Evan and I crossed paths more often, at first to trade updates about court filings or stray pieces of mail, then just because it felt natural. We took our time, but eventually, dinners replaced brief coffees. Laughter replaced the awkward silences of two people bound only by mutual hurt. One night at a restaurant in the West Loop, he raised his glass and said, "To solid foundations." I touched my glass to his and felt something open in my chest that had been locked for a long time. When we left the restaurant, there was a light snow falling. We walked back to my place, talking about work and his new plans now that the house had finally sold. Upstairs, Prince waited by the door as if he had been timing our arrival. Evan bent down and scratched him behind the ears. Prince, who once treated every visitor like an intruder, leaned into the touch and started to purr. I watched them and felt the quiet satisfaction that comes when a structure passes inspection. After everything, the phone call in Denver, the conference call that tore two relationships apart, the canceled wedding and the broken lease. I had a small apartment full of light, a soft, spoiled cat, and a man beside me who told the truth even when it was uncomfortable. I did not need to prove I was not insecure anymore. I had built a life where the ground under my feet finally felt steady again. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.